Good. Hello, everyone. Dave Kells here with another episode of the Independent CPA Firm Podcast, your source to thrive in today's market. Coming to you from the AICPA Engage Conference poolside at a cabana. What's better than that? Today with me, I have a special guest, Seth Fineberg from Accountants Forward. Hello, Seth.
Hi. Thanks for having me to the pool cabana hangout that we're doing here.
Got you out of the stuffy inside conference room.
Yeah. You got to get out. You got to get out whenever you can.
So why don't you, we've met several times. Why don't you give our audience a little background on yourself and how you're helping the profession?
So I'm a unique character. I'm helping in the best way that I know how, which is through content. So my background, my current business is Accountants Forward. Accountants Forward is essentially a content marketing and PR concern. I do a little back channeling. I do content planning, content creation, mostly for, the companies that are looking to partner with the accounting profession, because a lot of the marketing they do and a lot of their approach is kind of broken. Got to see, this in action such as it is over my years as a journalist. I've covered the accounting profession as an editor, writer for Accounting Today, Accounting Web, and a lot of the big accounting titles for the last 3 decades. I found myself without a full-time position about 4 years ago and decided maybe three and a half years ago to start my own concern where I can work kind of independently and individually with a lot of these businesses to help see the profession progress, because the profession very, very dearly needs a lot of the tools and platforms that are available to them. Yep. They just don't really trust a lot of them. So I help build that trust.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Thanks for that. So, the slant here, the audience here is the independent firm. So I think you've got a unique perspective, right? You've been covering the profession. You've spoken to countless numbers of leadership in firms. So what do you think firm leaders are talking about today that isn't really making the headlines yet? What do you think they're talking about?
Not making the headlines. Look, accounting it's a pretty small world, as I've realized over time. We can talk about it like it's this big, vast thing. It really isn't. So, you meet enough firm leaders, you kind of get a good idea, you get a good conversation going. And so there isn't a whole lot, but some of the things are really about still getting properly trained up on the things. Are we doing the right things? Are we keeping our people happy? Are we on top of technology? Are we on top of services? Are we doing the right things to ultimately serve our clients, which I don't think is entirely changed. But now, obviously we're at this yet another point of inflection in the profession where the very idea of being an accountant and what being an accounting firm is and does is fundamentally changing. Not that you're not still serving your clients, but how you go about it is moving, in some cases very rapidly, in other cases not so much, but still moving from this very transactional type of relationship to a much more consultative, much more human, interaction. And firms of all sizes are realizing that it used to be something very confined to kind of the upper level of firms, in the top 100 or, top few hundred in the profession have been doing this kind of work for some time. And they've been, investing, time and resources in, sort of this non-transactional, not that they still don't do tax, not that they still don't do books, but they've built on top of that layers. Yes. This is where CAS has come in and come into its own in popularity and in just making a whole lot of sense, even for a very small firm to be able to do. And what CAS is that big that sits right in the middle of those initials. Advisory, what is that? That just means you talk to your clients more with intent. Yeah. And firms are just wondering if they're doing that well and the right way, and do they have the right tools to do that? Do they have the right talent to do that? And, in addition to kind of their own future, because the world that Whitman and others, live in is the value of your firm. Do we have enough invested in our people, in our infrastructure, in everything that we're doing outside of just the serving our clients? So they're running a business, and that's kind of a new thing for some firms, is actually looking at their firms as a business.
which you're absolutely right. Managing partners of smaller firms usually spend a little too much time on client service and not enough time working on the business.
That's a whole other behavioral sort of thing.
Yeah. So you're working now helping vendors that support the space. The AI is everywhere. So
Everywhere.
I'd love to get your thoughts on AI and specifically, how this compares to the other disruptors that came along before it, like the paperless office, auto flow, offshoring, cloud adoption. We're now in, AI adoption. What are your thoughts on that? What are you hearing now?
So what I'm hearing now is, it's still very early days. Accountants are always looking to solve for, can it do this? Can it do this? They're looking at and I get it. They're looking at their small fires. They're looking at their small pain points, all of the little cuts that they have, and they're trying to Band-Aid it up, And I don't mind giving him props for this quote. Jason Stats was asked a question, recently. He was interviewed about AI. And he said, AI right now is a Band-Aid, but it's the best Band-Aid we ever had. And I got to thinking about that and talking to firms and even talking to folks who are building a lot of the stuff is that, they're trying to solve for all of these little things. But ultimately, it's got to get around to the bigger picture. This is how we got the tech stack to begin with. Yeah. All the tech stack is, we've got all these things to solve for all of our different things that we do. I think in short order, it's going to be how do we get our people trained up on the stuff, particularly the stuff that AI is supposed to be taking away. Okay, well, you're removing a crucial piece. You're removing a piece that ultimately trained your people to do. You learn on the job, right? You learn to do things by doing them. Right. And when you're telling them, no, you don't need to do that anymore. You need to just make sure that it's doing its job.
Yeah.
And that's causing, a bit of a conundrum, but it's a good problem to have because it's forcing firms to really think, I think, a little more strategically and really think about not just solving a problem, but a lot more holistically about what makes the most.
Yeah, and I don't think the profession has done a good job. I don't think the adoption of fully integrated systems, people, you said it, I want to solve for this, I want to solve for this, solve for this. When you do it, nothing talks to each other. And over time, that gap grows and grows and grows. So then you get a whole new breed of products that say, we're 100% fully integrated system. But to that point, I think there's still pushback from senior leadership of firms that says, you know what? I've been working in this decentralized environment for the entire history of the firm. We're pretty successful. I don't think my partners have the appetite to completely rip out our entire tech stack and replace it with the latest, greatest AI from a vendor that's only a year old.
Yeah. It's going to take some time, but I'm telling you that period is going to be a lot shorter.
I agree.
Than it once was. I mean, I look back at the last sort of point of inflection that you referred to, the coming of cloud. Cloud, I think, took longer for firms to take hold of because there was no imperative, really, to move. The conversation was, well, you can work in real time with your clients. This automates this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, well, how does this work? I mean, I've invested time and resources into my servers and my system and software licenses for all the stuff that's sitting there. And plus, I know where my data is. It's right here. It's in that server room. And I've hired people to make sure that everything is humming along. And now you're telling me, no, I got to switch off of that and go to who knows what? Sure. I don't know where this is going. So there was no imperative. In fact, it kind of got laughed out of the room very early on until you started seeing a lot of success, from firms who just even went full cloud. They're like, nope, we a server room. This is everything I need to do is on my laptop. I don't need suitcases to go see my clients.
Right. We weren't living in a remote world, so you didn't need to have 24/7 access to the data. You can come back to the office, plug in, do what you got to do.
To me, spelled the death of the billable hour. It sounded the death knell because how do you then justify billing for time when you're working in real time with your client and things are done in minutes or even a day or two? How do you bill for that? So that was kind of interesting. And now we're at a time now where things are moving even faster, and you're finding with AI that you're not dealing with the dynamic of this was built for me by coders or engineers, what have you. No, this thing was actually built by me and my team. And I put people on this,
right.
I put them on Claude or I put them on ChatGPT, and we've built this thing. And now with agentic AI being designed to go, okay, like this is kind of part of your staff now. So work with it.
Yeah.
You're finding new possibilities.
Yeah, totally. And I think I agree with you. Adoption is still slow in the profession, but this is speeding up now because AI is
Big time,
cutting that learning curve down, or at least the actual need to do it to stay competitive.
So the pressure is definitely on. And also you have to, what is also getting factored in is the clients that you're serving. The expectations are that much higher than they were. They're going to want more than just, great, you did my books, you did my tax returns, you did, maybe you did an audit for me, this year. Thank you for that. So I kind of have tools that can kind of do that already. So what's the value of you? So outcomes is really the name of the game. Not that it hasn't been, David, but I think outcomes are they're more at the forefront. And that's why you're seeing people who kind of maybe poo-pooed cash or advisory services at any level are going, this is something we need to just come to terms with and do it well. And how do we do that? Back to the tools, the people and training and all of that. And I think it makes for a more attractive profession.
Totally agree. So I'll shift gears a little bit. You and I met at the first PE Summit. So we're now I think we're 5 years into the PE craze with the Eisner-Amper deal and the Citrin-Krupman deal in 2021. This audience, where do you see the future of the independent firm in relation to these now major roll-ups that are taking place? Capital-backed competition. Where does the independent firm sit?
It is definitely a decision to make for any firm of any size. Being independent, remaining independent, it's something that is very present. But if it's part of your future plan too, you do have to work at that. I don't know of any firm right now that hasn't, of any value that hasn't been approached by PE, possibly multiple times. And what we were saying last year at PE Summit was you're going to get the knock on the door. The question is, how do you answer? What's your approach? You want to remain independent? Okay. How are you doing that? Are you prepared to say how you're doing that? So it's definitely an existential time for them. So the independent firms and the firms who are very staunchly firm leaders are like, yeah, this is what we're doing. They have to lean more into that value of what they do. No disrespect to the folks who have taken PE. I just think that there's not as much, pressure on them to, the money now is allowing them to do the acquisitions, roll-ups that they want to do, invest in the tech that they want to do, and be the kind of firm they want to be. Being independent it takes some planning. I mentioned earlier about actually running your business like a business. And really thinking about all the things that you've been advising on for years with your clients. Now it's time to step up and do it in your own firm. And that's kind of the state of play right now. I don't care if you're if you're 600, you probably are in a different dynamic. But as we know, the DNA of the accounting profession are basically these kind of sub 10 to 12 staff.
Oh yeah.
That's by and large from a sheer numbers point of view. And, they're all kind of in this place of just going, well, I could cash out and see the future of my firm, follow, possibly a successful path or possibly not, possibly someone else other than me kind of dictating its direction. But yeah, you definitely need to have more than ever a very clear vision of what you want to do. And, I wrote an article recently about the death of the 10-year plan. That was very standard, having a 10-year plan. Everyone's following this 10-year plan. I think you can have a 10-year vision where you want to be in 10 years, but your real core planning, you're not looking out more than 2 or 3 years because of the pace of change and because there's so much unknown but if you stick to that vision and you have that vision, you can plan for it and you can get where you want to be.
Yeah, I think
even as an independent.
Yeah, but the independent firm now has to up their game, as you're saying, to compete with PE. But here's the other thing. I think they have to play from the same playbook, right? Invest in talent, invest in technology.
Yeah.
And again, I agree.
Part of that plan
Yeah.
has to include that.
Yeah. And the backbone, the DNA, as you say, is the client relationships, right? The clients are going to want more. But I think AI and these other tools will kind of level the playing field a little bit, because that technology is not just for the big four. It's not just for the top 100 firms now. At some level, the 500th largest firm, right? The top 500 list is 6 million odd, thereabouts. But there's 44,000 firms registered with the AICPA. The 500th is 6 million. So just to your point, these smaller firms, there's a ton of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, it's definitely time to think about how, the real future. It's not just the work, because even the nature of the work is changing fundamentally because of technology, because of, client expectations and all of that.
But I think the industry, the profession, should now give more value to that smaller client.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, there's the days of you talking to your accountant once a year, maybe twice a year. Those should be over. There should be so much more. And there is, I believe, now with the advent of...
As a business, I don't see how you even do that. If you're an individual, sure. But, there's also other opportunities that could be missed, like in wealth management.
Yeah.
What about the future of your family? You got to be maybe talking to your CPA.
Those kind of services are not just for the ultra wealthy. It really shouldn't be. I'm talking to firms now that are catering to that blue collar, middle class person that, has a 401k, maybe he's got some other investments, maybe he's got some 529 plan for the kids. Right. They need planning. They need these kind of advisory services. And by the way, we'll do your tax return, but that's kind of secondary. We'll take care.
Right. Well, because you need that. You need to be in those financials to have those conversations. You need a full picture of, okay, I saw that you're not putting this money away over here, and you're continuing, that's your job. And this is why, the tax preparer is slowly becoming the tax planner. It's great to look back at things and have all that done right. Maybe you save them some money every year. Maybe you haven't. But with the tax planner, you can go, okay, look, there's some things we might have missed, or here's where I can see, some growth opportunities for you. And, off you get.
To your business model right now, you're trying to help the firms that support the profession do a better job of getting their messaging out there. Is that kind of?
Yeah. By and large, yeah. I mean, I just think the relationship between, we were just talking about how essential the tools to do the job are with the job that you're doing, which is serving your clients the best of your ability and, making your staff happy and being efficient and all these things. So, why wouldn't I want to help that relationship along through back channeling, through, building trust through good content? It's all in the approach. And I just think it has, and I get it, because, these businesses, they're under pressure to fill a pipeline. We need lead gen. We need our sales teams constantly talking to people. And that can lead you down a pretty, dark road. And it doesn't help you, doesn't serve you well to just be perceived as just harassing. A lot of these folks were just man, I just don't have time for you. I'll call you when I need you kind of thing. But why not start from a place of, I understand you. I understand the things that you're going through. Now, I'm not going to show you anything right away, but I just want you to know that I'm here. And if you get that line of communication going, you build that trust, they're going to ask for that demo. You're hitting them up through LinkedIn and their emails in the middle of March to try to do. That's got to end, man. So I'm doing my best. I'm just one me for now. But I'm doing my best to see that happen.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thanks. I mean, I appreciate your insight on the profession. You've been around it, covering it, in it.
I have, and I genuinely care because accounting is at its core. You get into it because you care, because you want to see a better economy. You want to see businesses and people's financial dreams be realized. How couldn't I, who has a heart like actually care and, covering the profession as long as I have and getting to know the individuals who call themselves accountants every day. It just makes my
like opening session here about trust and,
AI campaign.
Yeah, right. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yes, I can't wait for that. I can't wait to see that on
Start seeing it.
Bloomberg or whatever the channels they said they were going to be on. Because I think the profession needs that.
It has. And Mark, I think in his leadership is going to see it done.
Yeah. No, it was spot on. I thought it was great.
100.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me here. I really appreciate it. Thanks to our listeners. It's been another episode of the Independent CPA Firm Podcast, where we talk about and support firms that are doing the growth models that they need, all without outside capital. So if you like today's episode, please hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.